Helios-40, 85mm f1.5, and how to mount it to a mirrorless camera.
All right, here we are. So what we're going to do in this video is we are going to unbox this Helios-40 lens in here, and then I'm going to show you how to mount it onto your modern mirrorless cameras. If you want to skip ahead, links down below, you know what to do. So yeah, let's get into it. This is a nice leather case, and this is a Helios-40 85mm f1.2 built in communist Russia back, or is it Soviet Union, USSR, back in the 1950s. So let's start with the lens. Oh, that is a heavy lens. And this is pretty much all glass and aluminum. And look at that. It just looks beautiful. Look at that, wow. It comes with a metal lens hood, which is pretty awesome. And on the back, we have a back cap, and you can see right there, that is the logo of the KMZ factory. And here's the little fun fact. Back in like communist Russia, there weren't brands like Nike or McDonald's and stuff like that. The actual products had the logos of the factories they were built in. So this was built in the KMZ factory, and there are a bunch of different factories that built these lenses, and each factory is different. Some factories produce better quality lenses than others. So it was the factory brands that were the interesting thing. So that's a cool little piece of history. Let's see, what's the serial number? 630592. And with these Helios lenses, it's kind of cool to check the serial numbers to find out some information. Sometimes there's info on them online, sometimes not. And the really interesting thing about this lens is the fact that it has Swirly Bokeh. Now, for those of you who don't know photography, you don't know what bokeh is, it doesn't mean anything, but for those of you who are into photography and kind of follow vintage lenses, this lens right here is kind of like the king of Swirly Bokeh. And at 1.5, you get a nice thin depth of field, blurry background with a very swirly bokeh. So I'm excited to use this. I've never used this lens before, but I saw it online. I've been saving up, and I picked it up, and I'm excited to be using it. Oh wow, listen to that. That is awesome. And another cool thing about these old lenses is you set your aperture here. Let's say we set it to f22, and then you have a ring here, which you can use to open and close the aperture. And that's good for videography. If you want to shoot video with this lens, you can close down the aperture without any clicks. And then there's another aperture ring with the clicks. And what that was for was, let's say you're shooting at f22, you know, your aperture is going to be closed down nice and small, and there's not enough light coming in, so it's hard to focus. So you can open up the camera, focus, close it down, take your shot. So yeah, that's kind of cool. Old tech from the 1950s. This lens was so heavy, it had a tripod collar attached to it, which is pretty cool. And it feels like a good, maybe a kilogram. It's nice and heavy. All right, so now let's take a look at what else we have in the bag here. And it's cool, all original stuff from the 1950s. And these are filters. We have a nice yellow filter. And another yellow filter. Slightly different tone though. This is probably more of a yellow filter for black and white photography, and this is more of a warming filter. At least that's what it looks like. We'll have to test them out. And an orange filter. Now, let me show you how to mount this onto a modern digital camera, because it can be tricky. It's an M39 mount, and there are two different types of M39 mounts. All right, so let's mount this lens onto this camera. Here we have an EOS R with a new RF mount. Now, if you're using Sony, Fuji, Nikon, Lumix, whatever your system is, there's adapters out there for you. But before we adapt this lens, let's talk about the M39 mount, because it can get tricky. All right, so this is the M39 mount right here. It's a screw thread mount, very similar to the M42. And if you're not familiar with the M42, just think of it as a pipe. When you screw two pipes together, they have a thread. And that's pretty much what you're looking at here with this lens. Now, the tricky thing with the M39 mount is that there are two types of lenses that use an M39 mount. You have a rangefinder lens and you have an SLR lens. So SLR stands for single lens reflex, and those are the cameras with the mirrors that pop up to get out of the way so the light can get to the film. Right? And the difference is the distance between the back of the lens to the film plane on a rangefinder and an SLR lens are different. So if you get the wrong adapter for your lens, you're not going to be able to achieve focus. So this is an SLR lens, and what you want is an SLR adapter. So just for reference, this is the adapter I need for this SLR lens, and this is the adapter that I need for a rangefinder. So you can see that there are different heights because the distance from the back of the lens to the film plane is different. So the first thing you have to do is get this little adapter ring, and this adapter ring converts your M39 mount to M42. So that's step one, and you just screw that on there. Nice and easy. And here's a pro tip: if you're trying to take this adapter off, don't use any force. Don't pinch it. Just slide your fingers over it and it comes off easy, because if you pinch it and grip it and try and turn it, you're turning the circle into an oval and it's tightening and you're not going to get it off. So just the less force you put on it, the easier it comes off. So there we go. Now we have our M39 converted to M42, and then we have our M42 to EOS R adapter. And in your case, it'll be to whatever camera system you're using. So we're just going to screw that onto there. And now we pop that onto the camera, and boom. If you want to know more about these adapters, I made a video about it right up there. And that looks pretty good, right? That's kind of cool. All right, so before you take off and start shooting pictures with your vintage lens, there's one more thing you have to do, and it's super important. Now, modern mirrorless cameras and modern lenses have electronics and they communicate back and forth. But when it comes to these vintage lenses, there is no electronics, so the camera doesn't even know that there's a lens on the front of it. So when you try and take a photo, actuate the shutter, the camera won't release the shutter. It'll just be like, well, there's no lens on the front, so I'm not taking a picture. So what you have to do is trick the camera. And if you're using a Canon, I have a video about it right there. You can go check it out. So what you have to do is go into the menu of your camera system, whatever that is, and find a setting that says release take photo without lens or release shutter without lens. It's different on all the systems, but there is always a setting in the menu, and you have to turn that on, and that'll allow the camera to take a photo with no lens on the front. And you know what? This lens, I am super in love with the way this lens looks on the camera. It is so freaking cool, man. That is a cool looking lens, and it's definitely front heavy. You can feel it when you're holding the camera. It wants to pull it down. I think it weighs about 1 kilo. I'll put the information right there. And for reference, here is the 85 1.2 by Canon, and you can see that the lenses are very similar in size and also similar in weight too. And apologies if you can hear someone in the background yelling on a megaphone. They are filming a movie or TV show outside the studio right now, and it's kind of cool. They're just doing the scene over and over again on the street. It's fun to watch. I'm gonna snipe some shots with this lens out the window, see what I can do. But yeah, you know what? I'm curious. I haven't put this lens on a camera to test it out yet. So let's close out this video with video footage from this Helios-40. All right, so now we're filming with the Helios-40. We're at f4. I'm focused here on the tripod head, and I'm standing at the same distance from the camera as the tripod head, so hopefully I'm in focus too. It's one of those little tricks you got to do with vintage lenses. Let me know in the comments down below, what does the footage look like? And now we are going to do a little flare test, because this lens has a lot of flare, and I can see a little purple something floating around there in the little screen in the distance. And this light also should look like it has a glow around it or some halation. It should actually look like I'm using a Pro Mist filter, because that's just one of the natural characteristics of the lens. So this is ungraded. Now we're going to go to graded. And does it make a difference? I should be a little more contrasty now. All right, and if you want to see more content with the Helios-40, definitely subscribe to the channel. This was just a quick unboxing video, but I'm going to do a proper review of this lens at some point once I am comfortable with the lens. So if you want to see that, definitely subscribe to the channel. And if you want to talk to me about vintage lenses, photography, videography, all that kind of stuff, check out the Facebook group. I set up a Facebook group so I can chat to subscribers. So if you want to subscribe to the channel, join the Facebook group. We can have a little talk about photography, videography, and all that fun stuff. So with that being said, this video is over. Peace out. Thanks for watching. And I'm slowly going to get blurry as I walk towards the camera.